What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, host of Set Point, here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. And I've got a little bit of a treat for y'all. We have ourselves our first of 8 participants that will be taking place in the NCAA men's volleyball tournament. And here we have the Fort Valley State men's volleyball coach, Larry Rather. Larry, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited and thankful you brought me on to be able to speak about our program and university and this experience we're about to have.
Excellent. So, without any further delay, let us begin. So, let's have ourselves a little bit of an introduction when it comes to your program. So, I know your program's only 3 years old, and this will be the first time a SIAC conference participant will be entering the NCAA tournament or the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. So, give us a little bit of a history background within your program.
Yeah, this program started back during COVID in 2020. We had First Point Volleyball Foundation and USA Volleyball donated to the HBCU conference, SIAC. And during the COVID time, I had the pleasure of getting this position and seeing the vision for what we were trying to accomplish and what we wanted to do. And from that point, it was just trying to build it, getting the right kids in here and growing the sport itself as a whole, just in the state of Georgia. So it's kind of been a fun journey, especially now to be able to see we're reaping some of the benefits of all the hard work we've put in the last 2 years. But yeah, it's been definitely a tough but worthwhile ride.
And honestly, we are happy to have you a part of the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament. I think this is great for the game of volleyball itself. We're growing in all sorts of places. Now, for your team, this is actually your first winning season and the first time you've won the SIAC conference. How special is that for your program, knowing that you've made history and then some?
It's super special. This is what we were building for from year one. The whole time I was recruiting, we just graduated our first 2 seniors, and those seniors are graduating early. So our real first group that came in are juniors, and at the time recruiting them, that was the main conversation we were having. It wasn't about year one. It wasn't about year 2. It was about year 3, where we were going to be when our AQ came about, if it were to come, right? So we were preparing for what could have been an uncertainty. But we knew by year 3 we wanted to be ready to compete at a high level and at a sustainable level. So that means in year 1 and year 2, we took a lot of bumps and bruises. But I think those bumps and bruises led us to this road where we needed to be. Sometimes it's not always the fastest route. That's the best route. Sometimes you gain a little bit more character when you got to get a little more dirty. So I think those first 2 years got us to where we wanted to be, and it makes it to where, for me as a coach, I'm extremely proud of my guys. I'm a father of a 3-year-old, and now I feel like I'm a father of a 21 and older group over here now with these young men. And it just gives you that proud father feeling that they're able to finally see what they've been putting in the work to get.
Well, that is awesome. And congratulations on your fatherhood, not just on the volleyball court, but off the volleyball court. Now, who have been some of your standouts this season when it comes to Fort Valley State's men's volleyball team? And who have also been some unsung heroes that have been putting in the work?
Our offense is pretty balanced. We were not extremely heavy one way or the other. Some guys make a little more noise than others when they make their points and get their kills. But I think we're pretty spread out. I would say Isaiah Fed, who was second team all conference this year, first team all conference last year. Che Cooper, who's a transfer in for us, first team all conference guy outside. And then Jackson Hicks, who was a player of the year, first team all conference, second team all conference last year. Those 3 guys kind of handle the main load for us and allow things to really get going and open up some things for everybody else. But you have our libero, Diego Cardona, who's stepped his game up. He's only a sophomore, and the kid has gotten better every single day. Last year, he just was trying to get his footing right, and have stable ground and understanding what it's like to play at the collegiate level. And then I think this year he started to get that and understand the maturing of it and what he had to put in to get better. And he became the sole person to get himself to where he needed to be by putting in the work to get there. So I'd say those four for sure are guys that are very integral to our program and our team. I would say there's two big unsung heroes that kind of go without notice, and one of them is our manager, Rodney McCray. The kid came in this spring semester and wanted to be a part of the program. And honestly, if it wasn't for him, me and my assistant would be tied up doing a bunch of things that take us away from allowing our team to be 12-0 in conference, right? It allowed me and our assistant to sit down and really break down video, or sit down and have conversations with our guys versus running around and doing a little tedious thing. So Rodney is a huge contributor to us that is an unsung hero 100%. And then the other unsung hero would have to be my assistant coach. I mean, granted, he's my father. That's the other side of it. But to have him come in and kind of put his life on hold and come chase this dream with me is something that'll always be special to me. And something that I'll be able to show my son when he's older and he's my age and I'm my father's age. And I can show him now, like, hey, this was history made. I was able to do it with my father, with a bunch of young men that normally would get overpassed and overlooked. So I think those two are the main unsung heroes, I believe, that really deserve recognition.
That is awesome right there. And an amazing compilation right there. And that's actually a perfect segue to go into Ed Rather. So talk to us about your father and how he influenced you regarding the game of volleyball.
Well, how didn't he? So my father played in the Army. He was stationed in Germany for some years. He played in the All Army team and then the All Armed Force team. I was actually born when he was in the championship match while he was playing with the Army. He had to leave after the semis. My mom gave birth to me, and then they came right back over the next day with me in the arm, and I was in the gym. So I've literally been in the gym since I was born and kind of just fell in love with it from there. My dad's always been a coach since I've been alive, because once he retired from the military, he went into coaching. I was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and he started with Fort Knox High School, where he started his coaching career, and then he moved back to Illinois and started coaching. And I just would always go to practice with him, to the point of my punishment wasn't you can't go outside, it's you can't go to my practice. And that was like being a stab to the heart, like, no, don't take that away from me, I want to go. So I think he provided the exposure to the game, and then continue to allow me the ability to fall in love with it at my own pace and how I want it. Because I was also a football guy. I was a quarterback. I was a guy who had an arm. I could launch a ball down the field and have some accuracy with it, and that was kind of the pace of where I really was happiest, was playing football. But some things transpired when I was playing that made me kind of go, okay, well, I guess it's going to be volleyball, because the way you're going about things just isn't how I want to be handled. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the volleyball sector. And then it just became, this is home for me. This is everything I love. This is everything I do. I've been coaching, honestly, since I was 15. I was coaching my dad's JV team when I was that young. And then by the time I got to college, I started coaching high school and club right then in my sophomore year. So if you go off of while I was in college, I've been coaching since 2010. And I mean, that's just at the different levels too, between high school, varsity, JV, to club, 18s to 16s. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to work with those who are passionate about what they do and want to be the best at what they can be. And I got that from my father. So I think he was definitely the starting point. I like to joke about it and say I'm Ed Rather 2.0. I'm the upgraded model, the newer model. So I'm doing everything he's doing, but a little bit better and a little bit more new age. But all of my foundation of what I have is contributed to the knowledge and experience I've received from him.
What an amazing story right there. And first and foremost, thank you to your father for all his service that he's done. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. And second of all, that is just all around amazing. So this leads me to my next question. What made you basically transition from volleyball from football, and was that transition tough?
What made me transfer, it came down to I had a game on I think a Saturday or something like that, and I was selected to be on the USA Select team. And at that time, USA Select had just started. I was part of the very first year that they did the USA Select, because usually before that it was youth and junior national team. So I was on the US Select national team at 14 or at 13 was the very first year. And my football coach told me to miss it. He said, "Don't go. You're going to miss a football game for that." And I was like, "This is USA, and here's a regional thing. Like, I think I'm gonna go with USA. So if you don't have a spot for me when I get back, I completely understand." But that just kind of sealed the deal for me. Transferring over into it, I don't think it was difficult. I think it was more difficult for my teammates than it was for me because I brought over the same energy and passion that you would have on a football field. So I was very aggressive, very pumped up majority of the time. I'm the guy who's chest bumping you, punching you, or pushing you, whatever it may be. If you did something well, it kind of takes me to one of my favorite quotes from the movie The Replacements, where their middle linebacker Rodney, forget his name, is a little off, and his teammate scores, and he just like chases him down to tackle him. And the commentators go, "Well, if you don't want to be celebrated, don't do anything good." So for me, that kind of became like how I did things. I was always there to celebrate my teammates. Sometimes they wish I didn't, because sometimes it hurt a little bit more than they were expecting. But I just brought over that same mentality I have from football into volleyball, because I see the sport being just as physical. I may not be able to physically touch you, but this ball can physically touch you. And what I do with this ball can physically hurt you. So for me, it still became a physical sport, just like football is. So it was a pretty easy transition.
Awesome. Now, how did you find your way to Fort Valley State, or did Fort Valley State find its way over to you?
It was a little of both. So I was at the University of Charleston, coaching with a good friend of mine, Mike Andolo. He was the head coach there. He gave me a call. It was like, "Hey, I need a grad assistant. What are you thinking?" And at the time, I was kind of on my toes, but this was the second time Mike had called me for a position. And I was like, "Well, somebody doesn't call you twice. So it's kind of, you need to take it." So I was working with Mike at Charleston in West Virginia. And while we were there, I knew about the whole HBCUs coming about, and I was already kind of keeping my mind around it and keeping an eye on it and how things were going, but not trying to venture too far from my current program. And so I filled out the application, and I think they reached out before I had my application in, really, through word of mouth of different contacts and things like that, of people who know me in the volleyball community, use my name as a reference of somebody they should look into for this. And when I came on campus for my interview, it was like, oh my God, this place is a hidden gem. The campus is beautiful. It's extremely spread out. Most D2s aren't overly spread out. I mean, our campus alone is on 200 acres of land. It's well distanced to where you're not claustrophobic. And I got here, I was like, oh my God, like I can do something here. I can really recruit to this. I can get the things we need here. We have the support that we need. And it just became something that not only was it an opportunity to be a head coach, but it was an opportunity to be a head coach that I wish I would have had coming up in a community of HBCU. Because as you know, there's very few men of color who play the game. And that won't change until you see someone like you doing it at a high level. And I think Fort Valley has been able to do that this year, which is compete at a high level and be able to be that representation for that next young man, next generation to want to start to pick up the ball.
That's amazing. Now, some people might not know that the SIAC is one of the 6 automatic qualifiers. Tell me, what makes the SIAC so special? And talk to us about some of the competition and the other teams that you play in conference when it comes to the SIAC?
For far as the knowledge I have when it comes to the AQ, it was something we had to put in for and be granted the ability to do it. And I knew one of the minimum requirements is having 6 teams while you're in your probationary period. So for the 2 years we were in our probationary period, fighting and making sure we could be at a stable point to where when that time came to put our application in to get that AQ, that we'd be able to get it and be successful. And that came to fruition this year. I think we found out we had the AQ middle of winter. I think we found out in like December maybe, or November. We found out that we officially got the AQ, and it was like, oh my, like it's real, like it's happening for us now. And so I think being able to get that and competition within our conference, I mean, we're in year 3 of a conference and we've had a different conference champion every single year. So that kind of goes to show you the level of play of every team is capable of being a champion. I think everyone has the resources or the support that they need for the most part at the bare minimum of it to be successful. And it's shown. I mean, you've had 2 other schools other than us that have won the conference. Granted, they were the first 2 years, and we got the one with the AQ, but it just goes for us moving into next year. Once we finish this journey of what we're on, going to next year, it's not going to be given to us. Like we're still going to have to come up and show up. If we don't show up, we won't repeat because everyone's respectable. So I think we're on the uprise. Again, we're still in the pup stage of this conference, and to be able to continue getting matches against perennial powerhouses like UCLA and Pepperdines and Long Beaches, it helps our conference grow to where then we can reach a higher ceiling than we would have if we were left to our own devices.
Great stuff, Larry. Now that you mentioned Pepperdine and Long Beach and also UCLA and USC, that actually leads me to my next question. You're going to be coming out to California, but you've already been in California earlier in the season. What did you like about being in Southern California, and what other fun activities did you do outside of volleyball related things?
Well, those who know me, volleyball is fun for me. So I don't really always plan things out to the best, but I mean, it was always nice to get into some nice weather. I mean, around that time for us in Georgia, it was cool. I mean, warm for most people who were in the Midwest at that time, but for us down here, it was a little chillier. So to get out there and get in some warm weather was nice, but to be able to play some higher level volleyball, have some higher level officiating, and see what the game is supposed to be played at and what the standard is in other people's gyms, that allowed us to come back home and push to that needle forward every single day of what our goal is, what we're trying to accomplish and achieve. So I think that was the main goal of that trip, is to gain the experience and to see it with your own eyes, right? You can always see it from a TV, but to have it in front of you and to see what that work ethic looks like is definitely different. But on the fun side, I mean, we took the guys out. We went and did a little Hollywood tour with them. We went to a USC basketball game, men's basketball game, so they got to be there, and our guys were stoked because LeBron showed up, so they were all about it and all ecstatic about LeBron. But we kind of knew going into that trip, like it was mainly going to be about business. It wasn't too much about fun. It was business as much as we could. And when we got the chance to, we would do some things and celebrate and make sure it was an experience worth going for. But our main mission and our main focus definitely was the volleyball side of it.
You talked about how attending a match in person, a volleyball match in person, is way different than watching it off screen. Talk to us about why that is and basically what the experience is like.
Absolutely. I mean, you get to see the intangibles. You get to see how this All-American walks, right? What does he do? Is he screwing around? Is he focusing on what needs to happen and what needs to get done? Is he taking care of his body? Is his warm-up the same as his teammates? Or does he, when he's done with his team warm up, does he go off and do some extra stuff to make sure his body is ready and prepared? I mean, it's just kind of those things. How do they interact with one another? What is the standard of what they're acceptable or what they're accepting as something to get away with? How much are they allowing guys to mess around, right? Like the intangible little things nuances that you look for in a champion, they're allowed to see that now in person. You don't really get to see those things on a TV screen. You get to see them play like, yeah, he's a great athlete. Like the guy is a baller, but you don't get to see what it takes for him to get to that stage and to be able to be in person with them. You get to see everything from how they interact with their coach, how they interact with one another, and how they handle themselves. So that's kind of the biggest thing for me when it comes to getting at these high level matches in person. It's about seeing the intangibles. In order to be a champion, you have to act like a champion. And in order to act like a champion, you have to know what a champion does. And that's kind of what we were trying to do.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I would like to encourage everybody to attend the National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Tournament, help grow the game of NCAA men's volleyball. Just that quick little plug right there. But during the selection show, I need to know something. Is it true that when you were at Ball State, you had the match clinching block against Ball State or for Ball State? Or talk to us about that.
Yeah, actually I did. So the story is pretty funny. My freshman year, we were playing Cal State Northridge. My buddy Theo Edwards, who's now the head coach there, was on that team. Actually, he was a senior that year, and we played them back-to-back nights. And this was back when games went to 30. So that kind of shows my age a little bit because these young kids don't even know we used to play to 30. The night one, they took us in 3. And night 2, we were up 2-0 in the last set. We were going back to serve. My assistant coach called us. He handles our blocking, Coach Furnish. And he calls my attention. He's like, Larry. So I turn and I look at him like, yeah, what's up? He's like, hey, get Ethan and get Anders. I'm like, okay, hey, you two, coach wants you. And I go back into looking at the other side of the net, not paying attention to what my coach is saying. Well, he was scheming for us to run a trap block to their outside because that's who he was assuming was going to get the ball. And I was supposed to be a part of that. We were all supposed to be going that way. So if you watch the video, you see our right side and our middle start to release and go right, but I'm still standing there. And he sets the right side. And it's just me by myself for match point solo to sweep the number 3 team in the nation at that time. It was pretty exciting moment for a freshman to be able to do something like that and put their team on and be able to be the one who solidified their win against the number 3 ranked team in the nation.
That is amazing right there. And great breakdown right there. So this leads me to my next question. Would you as a player rather have a walk-off block or a walk-off service ace?
That's a dangerous one. Oh man, that's a tough one. I think I would go with, because they're both so great. I thought you were going to say a kill. If you said a kill, I was going to go with the block easily, but with a walk-off ace or a walk-off block, oh, man. I think a walk-off block. I think a walk-off block is a little more demoralizing than a walk-off ace because you kind of have to do some things. And the service ace, I mean, it's still a walk-off service ace is a walk-off service ace, right? But that one adds a little bit more communication. But when it comes to a block, it's literally you versus them. Who's going to win that battle at the net? And to be a guy who's 5'11", I'm always going to take the aerial attack if I can. So if it's a block, I'd rather take that and say, hey, you just lost to the 5'11" guy. Congratulations.
Amazing answer right there, Larry. All right. So looking at your matchup against UCLA, how exciting is that matchup? And even though you're facing the number 1 overall seed, how much excitement is that for you and your team to play UCLA again?
It's extremely exciting. Our guys are jacked up about it. I mean, we got to open our season with Pepperdine, but I mean, it was the same thing with UCLA. We opened with them. We've gotten to see them. We know what they look like. So our guys feel a little bit more comfortable versus if we were playing somebody new, and playing someone new and being in a new experience kind of would have made a little bit tougher on them. But we're playing someone we've seen before, and we're going into a new experience. So at least one thing is a stable and a consistent that we're used to already. So I think they're focused. Our guys are ready to go to battle. We know we're the underdog. We know everyone's counting on UCLA, but Vinny Lope said it best, and it's just how I was as a player. We're not afraid of anybody. We're going to come out and compete. We're expecting it to be a street brawl, a bar alley fight. We're not here to do anything other than come out and compete and fight for our right to be on that court.
Excellent. And have you basically made plans regarding going back to California and attend, or do you have any like plans for sightseeing, or is it just going to be all business for you all?
We'll definitely get the guys over to the beach. I know that's one thing they'll all love and be happy about. I think if I took them to the beach every day, they'd be happy. I don't think they would complain one bit. So yeah, we'll do some other things. Right now, we're mainly focused in on just getting everything in that we need for the tournament, and then we'll start doing our planning for everything else. But yeah, we'll definitely make sure they enjoy the experience. Make sure they get to some other matches other than their own, so they can really be a part of the environment and the atmosphere of what's going on around us.
In other words, the boys are locked in. All right.
Absolutely.
So a few more questions, and then I'll let you go. How tough is it to go undefeated in conference play? Just because you have to be perfect, and then once the conference tournament hits, it's basically win or go home.
It's extremely difficult. I mean, it's hard to beat someone twice in a row, let alone 3 times in a row. But I mean, every match we stepped to this year, it didn't matter if it was the #1 team in the nation or if it was the team who hasn't won any matches all year. We came in with the same respect, and focused on our side of the ball and came out to compete. If you kept up with us, great. If you were overrunning us, awesome. We know where we need to get better at. And if you're not able to keep up with us, you know where you need to get better at. But for us, it was always a thing of respect to play at our best. That's how I was as a player. It's how I'm always going to coach. I don't believe in disrespecting the other team, even if they're not an ideal good team. I'm still going to show them our best because I want them to know we didn't disrespect you and play down. I didn't want to put in my other guys. Like, I wanted you to see what our top group looked like against you, so you have something to measure to. So yeah, I think that's probably the main.
Excellent stuff. I love it. And I love the humbleness and whatnot. So for your team, fill in the blank. Fort Valley State wins the national championship if they blank.
Stay consistent and be aggressive.
I like it. So were there any other volleyball influences that you had in your volleyball career, or coaching influences by chance?
I mean, my dad, obviously, Mike Lingenfelter at Munciana Volleyball Club. He was the director there while I was coaching at the club. He's still someone I'll reach out to every now and again. And then I have my peers at the Division I level that I'll reach out to. So I have inspirations and mentors all over that I use as much as I can to better myself and make sure our program is at a good spot that we can do some really good damage.
Excellent stuff. So a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. Teran Rodriguez here of IE Sports Radio, host of Set Point with Larry Rather, the head coach of Fort Valley State men's volleyball. If you had to explain to a newcomer to the sport of volleyball, how would you describe the culture at Fort Valley State in terms of men's volleyball and Fort Valley State culture all around?
Well, I'll speak on the volleyball side of it first. The volleyball side, these guys are brothers. I like to call them our little tribe. Like, we're all from different walks of life and different backgrounds, but when we came together, it became a tribe and became our own home. These guys are annoyingly together too much, right? they kind of change the standard of what is acceptable here on campus from athletes in a way. They are a whole vibe. These guys go somewhere and they're asked to be there. You know their presence is there for sure. Everyone on campus knows who our guys are, and it's because they're just genuine people. They're passionate about what they do. They love their university, they love their program, and they love their brothers that fight with them on a day-to-day basis. And then I would say the culture of the school itself is about the culture. It's about finding yourself. It's about understanding who you are and who you want to become, and being able to do that in a comfortable surrounding area with people who, for those who are a minority, come into an HBCU, and for those who aren't a minority, maybe you want to experience something different than what you have your normal career and your normal life. And so you come and you try to venture it out, and you get to live in a different walk of life while still being in the same state, right? So that's what I would say the culture is with most of it. Our guys are they're just a vibe.
I love it. All right. And then one last thing before I let you go. The whole saying is if you get 1% better, you basically are getting better. So if you had to change or improve one thing about NCAA men's volleyball to make it at least 1% better, what would you change? And what can people like me and everyone else in the world do to make NCAA men's volleyball or men's volleyball in general more noticeable?
I have a twofold on that one. I mean, one is definitely um, expanding the bracket. I think we expand the bracket to 16. You have 8 at-larges, and you have your 8 conference winners. I think that makes it a little bit nicer of a field to play. And then it gives us a little bit more exposure. But when you do that, we have to start getting some of the love from your big TV broadcasting stations, and doing a better job of getting it out there, because men's volleyball, or boys volleyball, is the fastest growing sport in the States right now. And the women are doing a wonderful job of getting everything out there and laying the groundwork for us to be able to follow. Now I think it's just time we go ahead and start making that a reality a little bit more. I think the other thing is just exposure. Continuing to do things like we did with the SIAC, continue to grow the game, not just financially, but just with publicity and coverage, to be able to get things out to everyone, to where they're not like, oh, who is this team? We haven't heard anything about them all year. Well, we've been here all year. You just haven't looked for us, or no one's covered us, right? So I think that's the other side of it. If we're wanting to grow the game, we have to do better at exposing everyone to everything from the beginning.
Beautifully said, Larry. All right. Now, is there one more last thing before I let you go? Is there any more shout outs you want to give to anyone, or any thank yous you want to give before we sign off?
Yeah, I have to give it to my number one, which is my wife, Hannah Rather, and my son Phoenix. I mean, I do a lot of what I do for them, and the sacrifices my wife makes on a day-to-day basis for me to be able to chase this dream of what I'm doing is inspiring. It gives me that boost every day where I'm feeling not like I can get through it, and I look at her and the sacrifices she's making for me, right? That I feel privileged to be able to do what I do and do what I love. So without her, none of this is possible. Our team doesn't make it in the conference tournament. Our team doesn't go 10-0, because there's a ton of days where I may see my son for 1 hour in the day, and she's with the majority of the day. And those who have kids know it's tough to be around them 24/7, and to be their sole entertainment, or the sole person for them on a day-to-day basis. It's draining. And so without her being able to do that and hold that down for me and our family, I don't think I'd be able to be as present as I am with our team and our program. So I love her to death. She handles everything for us. My son, he's just a 3-year-old going on 6. So he's constant energy, the constant into things, and he just always gives me that smile and that reassurance of, this is why I do what I do.
Amazing stuff. Well, there you have it, everybody. My little interview with Larry Rather. the head coach of Fort Valley State men's volleyball. Thank you for your time, Larry. He's Larry. I'm Teran Rodriguez. This is the first of many interviews with all the NCAA men's volleyball teams. See you on the other side.